Thanks for joining us on the program Insight. Some time ago, we looked at the criminal justice system or criminal justice act in Nigeria. Today on discussion segment, we shall be looking at issues around decriminalization of petty offenses in Nigeria. What is it all about? How is it being domesticated in Nigeria? And on interview segment, we'll be looking at the public governance process, briefly on the statement by Mr. President on reassuring parents of the abducted schoolgirls from Chibok and Dapchi that their case is still in the front burner and other matters. And on media review?
Well, on the media review today, we'll be looking at decriminalization of petty offenses. We realize that a lot of Nigerians do not know about this concept, even the law enforcement agencies. So we'll be looking at the role of the media. What role is the media playing? How well are we informing the people about this new concept?
If you don't know anything, just like we say, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So the media also has a role to conscientize and bring visibility to things like this so that the public will get to know what they should do and what they should not do. Well, up next on the Insight is the discussion segment. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights defines petty offenders or offenses as minor offenses such as being a rogue and vagabond, loitering, hawking, prostitution, failure to pay debts, and disobedience to parents. A jurist in Nigeria was recently quoted. He said, petty offenders whose wares are not up to 250 naira or about 250 naira are arrested, detained, and fined 5,000 naira. How do you beat that? He went on to say that there must be a redefining of a more decent way of punishing offenders, as the present practice is dehumanizing and wicked, and arresting children who are helping their parents to sell without which they cannot feed, and tagging them ex-convict after sending them to prison for failure to pay fines will be stigmatized. So that is the concern on Insight today. And my guests, I have two ladies, Mrs. Ogechi Ogu, Deputy Director of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action. Thanks for being on Insight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Mercedez, Alfa, Communications and Research Associate of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action. Thanks for joining me on Insight.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay. A lot will say that at times, somehow, the law protects. Somehow, the law encourages. Protects human rights and property. At times, they say it encourages maybe the orchestration of certain offenses in the society. Now, when we say decriminalization of petty offenses or offenders, what are we looking at?
Okay, we are looking at specifically removing some offenses from our statute books. Not only the offenses, the punishments that go with them. You know, you have given an example of certain offenses that can be classified
just one of them.
As just some, as petty. You know, on the other hand, to give a broader meaning of petty offenses, you equally look at the kind of punishments such offenses attract. Such offenses that have warning, very short fines, very short-term imprisonment, or the community service as punishment can equally be classified as petty offenses. Okay. So the whole idea of decriminalization is, let us remove this, and equally the punishment that come with them. And it has its foundation on human rights. The issues around access to justice, taking along with it poverty on one hand, human rights issues, you know, following, and the kind of punishment that can be given. And when you talk about human rights, you are now looking at the status of the persons involved. What type of offense is this? Are there a particular group of persons that are affected by this type of offenses? Like when you talk about loitering, who can loiter? Can somebody highly placed in society be loitering on putting on tattered clothes Or can you see his children hawking groundnuts on the streets? So when you look at these issues, you now see, are these laws targeting some classes of people? And what is it that we are doing in terms of welfare for this class of people? We take it this side, you know, and weigh side by side, considering our chapter.
Let me interject a bit.
Okay.
When you say loitering, what category of loitering are you looking at? One, if you say loitering, I know certain persons have been arrested at some hours of the night, and they are tagged, they are arrested for the offense of loitering. So which one do you mean here? Okay,
even when we talk about, when we go deeper into this discussion, you find out that the African Commission equally looked at such offenses that don't have definite definition. Such offenses that you cannot really, that gives the arresting agency the latitude, that gives him wide discretion.
Okay.
You understand? So it's not like specific. When you say loitering, anybody can loiter. You understand? So it is not specific. And the people arresting can leverage on that to go beyond the laws and get at the people that are poor within the society.
Okay.
It's just like being a vagabond. It's just like as we have in our key statute books, like the penal code, belonging to a gang of thieves. How would you ascertain that this person belongs to a gang of thieves? You are leaving a lot to conjecture. You are leaving the arresting agency, you know, giving free hands to interpret certain situations to mean belonging to a gang of thieves.
Let me go to Mercedez now.
Okay.
Let me take a cue from prostitution, for instance. Would you encourage the law to decriminalize that?
Yes, I would actually.
Why?
In as much as we as Nigerians, we like to use a moralistic lens to look at prostitution. We have to look at the root causes. People, especially like from the baseline study that we did, speaking to the commercial sex workers, a lot of them are not going into it just because they feel like it's because of poverty. They feel like they have no other option and they need to survive. And just like my colleague said, that's the issue really with this criminalization of petty offenses. It's that we need to understand that these people are really trying to make a living. So unless we do something about that in terms of both their welfare and with creating an enabling environment, it's really not fair to clamp down so hard. Because, I mean, what are the alternatives, you know, that we're providing to them? You know, and also when you look at it, in terms of looking at sex work as a crime, what is the harm that is really being done? You know, so I really don't think, you know, it should be criminalized.
If the executing agencies or law enforcement agencies are properly enhanced or their capacity properly built, can there be a way out? Because I realize that there's a huge capacity gap, mostly with the law enforcement agencies and the MDAs that are supposed to handle this. For instance, you go to prison, for instance, and you find maybe a young adult who was arrested for hawking and is dumped in prison awaiting trial on end. The matter has not even been tried. So, building capacity of the agency, will it help?
It will do a lot. In fact, that's one of the targets of the project, enhancing capacity of the enforcement agencies. You know, the laws are made for human beings. Every law has a philosophy behind it. When you start talking about, you know, criminalizing certain actions, you are thinking holistically, you know, of the society. How do we protect the society? But in the course of protecting individuals within the society, we should not overreach ourselves again and get some people criminalized because of status that is not of their own making, and along the line incur or, you know, or get into more human rights abuse. Now, enforcers of law, from the baseline research, most of them don't even if you take the report.
This is your research. Is this Nigerian domiciled or African domiciled?
That is the one we carried out
in Nigeria.
Okay. Within the 5 focal states. We found that most of them don't know much about the petty offense. Neither do they know about the principles. And you know that Nigeria is a signatory to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. We are a member of the AU, so it's all about us. From the inception of the principles, the initiation, and the brain behind it all, Nigeria has been part of that. So what is expected of us as a nation is to move with the principles, to implement. And for this to happen, the law enforcement agencies should be in the know. And that is what this project is targeting at. Number one, let them be informed, and rightly sensitized, enough awareness created on these issues, and taking along the human rights angle. Let them understand that a law can be implemented with a human face. Let them understand the real issues within Article 1 of the Universal Declaration. That aspect of us be relating with one another in the spirit of brotherhood. Okay. And that is just watching the back of others. The African Union is now thinking for the poor in our society. How does the law affect? And talking about equality of law, are we bringing in, like African Charter Articles 2, 3, 18 speaks specifically to the issues of non-discrimination, equality and non-discrimination. There are certain laws that will be in place, and it will seem to target a particular group of people. And once a law does that, you know what that means. It's just like coming out to say, if anybody, there shouldn't be maternity leave. And you know the type of people, if you must have a child, then forget your job. You know who you are targeting. So that is the issue.
Okay,
so
let me go to Mercedes. Is this really an issue about a certain group of people?
It is.
Because prostitution, loitering, for instance, these two. Even hawking. You have people of the high class today. Today I drive through certain streets, you find somebody in a Porsche car, the boot is open, selling. That's a high class person, not just a lowly placed person.
But are those actually the groups of people who are being targeted, who are being arrested? That's the question that we also need to ask. Are those actually the people?
Was that person hawking?
Well, just like we said, it depends on the interpretation. But then again,
so tell us about the issue of a particular class of persons now. Okay.
So basically, with the way the law enforcement agents, go about arresting and really implementing the criminalization of petty offenses, they are targeting the most vulnerable groups of people in our society. Poor people, people who are socially and economically disadvantaged. Because most of these people do not have any awareness of their rights. They don't even know what the offenses are. And they can't fight for themselves. So what happens is, with loitering, they are arrested, they are exploited, given outrageous fines that they're not able to, to pay. And with sex work, of course, we know there are different categories of sex work. We have people who do it in like high class places, but they're not the ones who you see in places of detention. It's mostly the people who stand, on the sides of the streets. So when you look at the statistics of people who are actually being targeted, you see it's the most vulnerable people, and that's really the issue for us. Because, as a society, if we're not trying to protect the most vulnerable, then what are we really doing, and what does that say about us?
Well, if the most vulnerable is culpable, why should we protect the person?
So yes, we agree that
I commit a crime.
Yes.
Yet I'm vulnerable. Why should the law not catch up with me?
What we are advocating is not that some of these things are not offenses at all. We're just advocating for alternatives. So rather than having criminal sanctions, let's use community sentencing, Let's look for other ways, explore other ways that we can deal with this problem.
Okay. So far in Nigeria, this was an African thing, but Nigeria is happening in Nigeria too. And by the records, awareness of petty offenses classified 76.4%. Awareness of principles of decriminalization of petty offenses, 29.6%. Support declassification of petty offenses, removal of petty offenses from law books, 27%. Positive attitude towards non-custodial sentences, 65.4%. Huge work you have here. How do you intend to surmount this?
Okay, it's huge work indeed. And that's part of the report you just read out speaks to the enforcers of the law. They are the ones that are looking at the aspects of decriminalization from that angle. That's why you have 24%. If you take it from the other angle, you will see that the percentage will be high. Now we are working, our major intervention is with the media. First of all, for laws to be implemented, people should know about that law. For me to, assess whatever rights, protections that are within the laws, I should be aware of such protections. So from the angle of the enforcers of the law, from the angles of the likely victims, there must be awareness creation, robust media engagement. And this is important given the fact that if you look at our two major statute books, criminal law and the criminal code and the penal code, you find out that it's within the penal code that you have adultery. As you were talking about prostitution, it's not there, it's adultery that is in the penal code. Now, when you talk about this prostitution, you find out that it is hidden within what we call municipal laws, like, prostitution for persons living in FCT here in Abuja. You find it under AEPB laws, Abuja Environmental Protection Board. They make provision and they take it that these persons are constituting nuisance. It's not like they come out because they equally understand, the balance between our jurisprudence in issues of morality and the law. Okay. So they now hide under constituting nuisance, like in Enugu State. When we had our initial meetings,
okay, what focal states?
We have focal states. We have Enugu, Lagos State, Kano State, FCT, and Abia State. So these are the 5 states we are working in now. So there they were talking about these persons hiding arms for armed robbers and the rest of them. Are there no other ways to engage with these persons? Since you agree that you don't have any law saying this is, a crime. So why would you go the other way to engage with these people, criminalize them, give them the punishment, and along the line abuse their rights in the process? So there are better engagements, and this is what part of the thing the project is targeting to achieve. Speak more on these issues and let us all put heads together. It's a problem, we have all agreed, but we must work together to ensure that we deal better with the less privileged in the society.
Ignorance of the law is no excuse. So how would you be able to, what are you doing to maybe conscientize the vulnerable so they know when they should say no or resist without necessarily causing violence?
We've already begun engagement with some of these vulnerable groups, like we've done with the Tricycle Association of Nigeria. We've also done with sex workers. We've spoken to petty traders as well. And what we intend to do is, we're just right now at the early phases of the project. So we intend to, for instance, set up a helpline for these people. Also, continuous engagement whenever we have our meetings, just to make sure that they're aware and to strengthen their association so that there's a way that information can filter down, even to the grassroots, to every one of them. So that's like some of the plans that we have. Okay. And also, we're also looking at some strategic partnerships with social welfare so that we can provide social support, and also we're looking at providing legal and paralegal support to them as well.
Okay. Before we go, I know you interface or mainstream with certain government agencies. the judiciary, justice system, the police. So are you meeting any brick wall, or it's a smooth sail?
As we speak, it's like a smooth sail for us. In fact, the many we have engaged with identify with this project, like the judiciary mostly, National Human Rights Commission, even the enforcers of the law, they are interested, you know, in this
So
process.
in the face of the international community, Nigeria is on course?
Yes, yes, we are on course as we speak. But we want, you know, action. We want things to start coming out. We want guidelines to start coming out. We want actual, but even the judiciary, I think they are taking the lead in this, because one of the major, you know, interventions we are bringing in is the non-custodial measures, which have been already provided in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and the new Prison Correctional Services Act has that provision.
Okay.
So the FCT, as we speak, is working hard towards piloting these non-custodial measures. And we know, as a matter of fact, that the beneficiaries will be mostly victims, you know, the persons, offenders, you know, regarding petty offenses.
Okay.
So I think a lot.
Thank you so much, Ogechi Ogu and Mercedez Alfa from Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action. It was nice chatting with you on Insight.
Yes, it was great. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks
Up
a
next
lot.
on Insight is the interview segment. Stay with us.